Breaking, Nas FCKED up Jim's whole career in one line. Asterisk, wait, did Nas just obliterate an entire man's legacy with a single sentence? Did we just witness the most silent but savage execution in hip-hop history? And nobody even warned Jim to duck, because let me tell you, this wasn't just lyrical warfare. This was career homicide with poetic precision. One bar, no warning, no diss track, just a calculated whisper that shook the entire culture to its core. And Jim, let's just say he walked into the Coliseum swinging a plastic sword, and Nas showed up with a nuclear pen. Now the streets are talking, social media is on fire, and the memes, oh baby, the memes are brutal. Did we just witness the first rapper to get cancelled by punctuation? And what was Jim thinking calling out a man who helped build the very genre he's trying to stay relevant in? The receipts are coming in. The fan base is divided, and insiders are already leaking what's going on behind closed doors. So sit tight because we're about to peel back every messy, meme-worthy, mic-snatching layer of this lyrical hit job. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll never look at quiet room bars the same way again. Jim Jones thought he was just having fun, talking slick like it's 2005, throwing shade at Nas like the culture forgot who really built the foundation these rappers still eating off of. But what happened next wasn't just a diss, it was a lyrical death sentence, quietly delivered with the precision of a sniper shot from a rooftop. No yelling, no beat drop, no dramatic build-up. Just one cold line from Nas, and Jim's entire rap legacy folded in on itself like cheap denim. It started the way all ego-driven disasters start, with a mic, a camera, and a rapper too confident in his own relevance. Jim was on one, laughing, dismissing Nas as out of touch, irrelevant, not even top 5, said Nas didn't move the culture, that he wasn't outside, that nobody in the younger generation cared. And maybe for a second, just a second, some folks entertained that fantasy. But deep down, everybody with ears and a memory knew had just signed his own lyrical death certificate, because Nas ain't the type to bark back in real time. Nah, he waits. He listens. And then when the whole room is watching, when the lights are bright and you think the moment is yours, that's when he strikes. And that's exactly what happened. Out of nowhere, mid-interview, Nas drops the quietest, coldest, most dismissive line of the decade. No name, no aggression, just surgical execution. He said, "I don't argue with minis. When I built the mountain, and the internet froze." Did he just say that? About Jim? Was that real? People started scrubbing back the footage, replaying it, slowing it down like it was a Zapruder tape, and the verdict came fast. Nas just ended Jim with a single sentence. The memes hit like a hurricane. Twitter turned into a funeral procession. Instagram was flooded with rip posts. A photo of Jim Jones next to a tombstone with the words "died by metaphor" went viral in under an hour. And the worst part, Jimmy had no idea it was coming. No clue he was about to get cooked on a global stage. He thought he was the main character. He thought poking a legend would make him trend. And yeah, it did, but not how he imagined. Because this wasn't a rap beef. This wasn't verses and hooks. This was a cultural reset. The streets, the blogs, the fans, everyone suddenly remembered just how untouchable Nas really is. And Jim, he went radio silent. No clever comeback. No rebuttal track. Just silence. And that silence said more than any bar he could have written. Behind the scenes, insiders say Jim was scrambling. His team started pulling back on interviews. Shows were mysteriously cancelled. One promoter even leaked a message saying, "We're not touching Jimmy right now. It's bad optics." Nobody wants to be associated with the guy who disrespected Nas and got ethered without a beat. Brand deals went cold. Sponsorships ghosted. Even a sneaker collab that Jim had been hyping for months went dark overnight. The message was clear: don't play with royalty if your crown's made of plastic. And what makes this even more humiliating is the fact that this wasn't the first time Jim tried to ride controversy to relevancy. He's done this before: picked fights with Jay-Z, threw jabs at Pusha T, tried to bait anyone with a real pen just to get back in the headlines. But this time, he chose the wrong one. Because Nas isn't just a rapper. He's a pillar, a monument. You don't slap a statue and expect it to bleed. You expect it to fall on top of you. And that's exactly what happened. One sentence, and the weight of Nas's entire legacy came crashing down on Jim's head. The whispers inside his own camp started leaking too. Screenshots of group chats hit the blogs. Alleged messages from Dipset insiders saying, "We told him to chill. He didn't listen. Now we're cleaning up the mess. Another message read, "We ain't built for a NAS battle. This ain't Versus. This is war." And the fans. They turned ruthless. Comments under Jim's recent posts are a battlefield. "You should have just sipped your tea and stayed in Harlem," one user wrote. Another said, "First rapper to commit career suicide on tape." A viral meme showed Jim photoshopped onto a chalk outline with the caption, "Here lies Jim's career killed by one bar." It wasn't just funny, it was brutal. And while Jim stayed low, trying to act like nothing happened, Nas was everywhere. Red carpets, interviews, smiling, calm, untouched. His Spotify streams exploded. Illmatic re-entered the charts. A deluxe vinyl reissue sold out in 9 minutes. Even that old Netflix documentary about him from 2016 suddenly started trending. One sentence brought an entire legacy back to life while sending another to the grave. And here's where it gets uglier. Sources say Jim's team started making phone calls, desperate ones, asking YouTube channels to take down Nas's interview clips, allegedly reached out to PR agencies to control the narrative. One leaked email even read, "We need to pivot. Can we reframe this as playful competition?" But the culture wasn't buying it. Because there's nothing playful about getting sand in front of millions and not even being man enough to respond. This wasn't a moment, it was a message. A warning to every rapper thinking clout is stronger than craft. And Nas, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't release a diss track. He just sat there, spoke truth, and watched the world do the rest. The damage wasn't loud, it was elegant. And that's what makes it sting even more. Because you can't fight a man who doesn't flinch. You can't out-rap a writer. You can't shake a mountain when you're still figuring out how to climb. And Jim, he finally realized it. Too late. You could see it in the footage that leaked later, a behind-the-scenes video of Jim backstage, pacing, red in the face, throwing his hat down, muttering, "I never should have gone at Nas. That man is the devil in Timberlands." And while that backstage meltdown was already embarrassing enough, what happened next pushed the whole situation from a public L to a full-blown cultural collapse. Because the moment that video leaked, it was like the internet held a digital intervention. Suddenly, every podcast, every blog, every reaction channel had one topic: Jim Jones getting cooked so thoroughly by Nas, he might as well open a rotisserie. And it wasn't just hip-hop fans talking. Late-night shows cracked jokes. A sketch on a popular comedy channel had a spoof of Jim trying to delete his discography folder and the computer asking, "Are you sure you want to erase history?" Meanwhile, Nas hadn't even tweeted. Not a word, and that silence. That was the scariest part because it told everyone he didn't need to gloat. He didn't need to scream. He dropped one line and walked away like a mafia boss lighting a cigar after a hit. But the real heat came when industry insiders started chirping. One anonymous label exec told a journalist, "This is a textbook case of what not to do. Don't antagonize legacy. Don't box outside your weight class. And definitely don't poke a man who went toe-to-toe with Jay-Z and came out cleaner." And that line started showing up everywhere. In meetings. In presentations. A leaked slide from a Zoom training at a major record label literally had a bullet point called the Jim Jones Protocol. And underneath, Step 1. Know who you're dissing. Step 2. Make sure your bars are flame-proof. Step 3. If it's Nas, just don't. And while the industry was memeing him to death, things got even worse behind closed doors. Multiple sources close to Jim claimed his phone was ringing off the hook, but not in a good way. Fashion brands that were finalizing collabs, a vodka brand that had just sent over mock-ups for a signature bottle, unfollowed him the next day. It's one thing to get ethered on tape, but when the liquor leaves you, that's biblical. And get this, rumors started swirling that a major Dipset documentary that had been quietly in development for over a year suddenly hit pause. The reason? Brand crisis, according to someone allegedly on the production team. Imagine that. A decade of street hustle, hits, and Harlem anthems. Halted by one line. And the humiliation didn't stop there. Fat Joe threw a summer barbecue in the Bronx, just good vibes, old heads linking up, no beef. Jim showed up, trying to act unbothered, wearing linen like he just came from a beachfront meditation. But the air, it shifted the second he walked in. Conversations paused. Jaws tightened, and in the far corner, leaning casually by the grill, stood Nascom, glass in hand, not even looking Jimmy's way. And then, with the most casual smile, Nas raised his cup and said, "Good to see you, Jim." That's it. 5 words. But the silence that followed. Deafening. People said the tension felt like a courtroom waiting for a verdict. You could hear the potato salad sweating, and later that night, like the universe wasn't done yet, a private studio video surfaced online. Jim was pacing, clearly flustered, yelling into a phone. "I should have never disrespected that man. I thought he was soft. That ain't no rapper. That's a Jedi with a notepad." And folks ran with that quote like it was gospel. Twitter bios got updated. Memes popped up with Nas dressed as Yoda holding a quill. Someone even animated a scene where Jim gets force-choked by lyrics. But let's pause for a second, because this isn't just about jokes. This was a public dissection. A whole career, being reevaluated, not based on skills or music, but based on one horrible decision, trying to trend off a legend's name. And when fans went digging, they found receipts, old interviews, tweets, moments where Jim had tried to push the narrative that Nas was out of touch, that newer artists didn't care, that the golden era was over. And now, that narrative collapsed like a bad alibi, because in one breath, Nas had not only defended his name, he reignited his myth. Streams through the roof. Gen Z fans discovering Illmatic for the first time. Artists left and right paying homage. A surprise Nas tribute cypher was announced by several big-name rappers, and guess who wasn't invited? Yep, Jimmy. And the silence on his end started speaking volumes. No interviews, no statements, no clever rebuttals. Just awkward Jim selfies and a lot of ignore the hate captions. But the comments section wasn't letting it go. "Bros, out here posting curls while his bar is in critical condition," one user wrote. Another said, "You built a whole identity off Harlem pride just to get humbled by a Queensbridge whisper, and it's not like Jim didn't try to bounce back." Word is, he hit the studio immediately after the Nas line went viral. But instead of a diss track, insiders say what came out was a confused, defensive, offbeat rant that his own team didn't want released. One engineer allegedly said, "It sounded like someone rapping through a panic attack." And if that wasn't rough enough, news broke that Jim's publicist had quietly stepped away, citing creative differences. Translation: "I ain't cleaning up this mess." And now the narrative isn't even about the beef anymore, it's about the consequences. Commentators are calling this the most elegant takedown in modern hip-hop history. No yelling, no threats, no back and forth, just one bar so icy, it froze a whole man's momentum. And here's the kicker. Nas still hasn't addressed it again. No follow-up, no gloating. Just kept moving, as if dismantling another rapper's career was just a Tuesday afternoon. That's what made it sting, because Jim came with noise, but Nas came with impact. And impact lasts longer than noise. The streets are watching. Rappers are rethinking their strategies. Suddenly, nobody's mentioning Nas's name unless it's in praise. One underground MC tweeted, "Say Nas 3 times in the mirror, and your tour gets cancelled." Another wrote, "That man got silence as a superpower." And just when you thought things couldn't possibly get more twisted, a new rumor started circulating. Allegedly, Nas was approached to headline a major hip-hop unity concert, and guess who was originally supposed to co-headline before the beef? Jim. But now, event producers said they were reevaluating lineup integrity. Translation: they're not about to let a walking PR disaster share the stage with the man who ethered him without a microphone, and that unity concert. It ended up happening without Jim anywhere near the building. Nas walked on stage, crowd screaming like royalty had entered the arena. And when he dropped that same line, "I don't argue with minis. When I built the mountain," the place erupted like a courtroom hearing the final verdict. Fans were screaming, phones in the air, and somewhere across town, sources say Jim was watching it on a muted screen with his phone turned face down. You can't make this stuff up. Because this isn't just a rap beef anymore, it's a full-blown industry case study. One man thought he could play with fire, and the fire turned into a wildfire that burned through everything attached to his name. And while Nas was out here elevating the culture, Jim was out here doing damage control with duct tape and expired PR tactics. At this point, it was no longer about the original diss, it was about the fallout, the embarrassment, the very public realization that he barked up a tree with roots deeper than Harlem history. And now, fans have completely flipped the narrative. What started as a few jokes turned into a tidal wave of memes, parody songs, TikToks, reenacting Jim's reaction in slow motion. One creator even did a full dramatic reenactment of the quiet room moment with candles, a funeral suit, and Nas's quote framed like scripture. Another viral meme showed a map of New York with Harlem roped off and labeled under lyrical construction. The internet is relentless. And Jim, man, he tried everything. He hopped on Instagram Live again, this time saying, "Y'all act like I got destroyed. That was just one bar." But the comments told a different story. "One bar, one funeral," someone wrote. Another said, "It only takes one bullet, bro." He tried to laugh it off. Said Nas ain't moved the streets in years. Claimed he's still outside, but all that bravado sounded like background noise next to the silence Nas used as a weapon. And then came the interviews. Not from Jim. Nobody wanted him in a studio right now, but he sat down with a legendary host, and when asked about the moment, all he did was smile and say, "Some things don't need volume. Truth carries its own weight." That was it. No breakdown. No explanation. Just calm confidence that echoed louder than any diss track ever could. And the industry took note. Big-name rappers started quietly unfollowing Jim. Some producers pulled out of future projects. His next tour got quietly postponed though, let's be honest. That's a nice word for canceled before it embarrassed itself, and rumors started flying that Jim's management was pushing for a full rebrand. Not just a new album, but a whole image flip. Some said he was planning to position himself as a real estate mogul. Others claimed he was thinking of starting a podcast, Brick by Brick, a show about rebuilding your brand after lyrical bankruptcy? But the streets weren't buying it. You can't pivot from Tough Talk to TED Talk overnight and expect the internet to forget. Because the internet, it never forgets. And then came the biggest blow yet. A leaked internal meeting from a media company revealed that Jim Jones was now officially on a brand risk list. Right there next to names caught up in actual scandals. Why? Because disrespecting Nas has now been classified as a cultural offense. One exec was quoted, saying, "We can't afford to back someone who got one-lined out of the game." That line, "one-lined out of the game," caught on fast. It started showing up in comment sections, merch mock-ups, even punchlines in other rappers' bars. Jim had become the punchline to his own career. And the cruel irony, he did it too, himself. He walked into the ring shadowboxing a ghost, thinking he'd spark a viral moment. Instead, he became one. A warning. A cautionary tale. A before picture in a rap museum exhibit labeled, "What happens when ego ignores legacy?" And what's worse, some of his own people turned quiet. Not out of loyalty but self-preservation. Because when a ship's sinking, not everyone wants to go down with it. Fellow artists started playing the neutrality game. No shoutouts, no support, just ghosting. A few even posted cryptic tweets like, "The game humbles us all eventually." No tags, no names. But everybody knew who they meant. And as Nas kept climbing, releasing new music, doing interviews, being praised across generations, Jim was stuck in PR limbo. Every move he made felt desperate. Every post, a cry for relevance. Every appearance, a reminder of what happens when a man mistakes noise for power. One sentence, that's all it took. Not a verse, not a diss track. Just one, perfectly placed, sentence that split a career in two. And let's be real, this wasn't just a loss, it was an execution. Quiet, efficient, public. Because Nas didn't argue, he didn't shout, he didn't react. He ended the conversation before it even started. And that's what makes it legendary. That's what makes it unforgettable. Jim Jones came looking for smoke, and found himself standing in the middle of a wildfire, alone, unprepared, and without even a match to blame it on. And now we're left with the wreckage. A career dangling by a thread, a reputation in freefall, and a legacy forever stained by one fatal misstep. Because when you come for a king, you better not miss. And Jimmy, he missed so hard he shot himself. And the culture, the fans, the artists, they watched it happen in real time. No edits, no filters. Just one man learning the hard way that sometimes silence is deadlier than sound. So now the mic is in your hands. What do you think, folks? Was this just a lyrical love tap that went too far, or did we just witness the most elegant career execution in hip-hop history? Did Nas deliver a poetic justice moment that shook the entire culture? Or did Jim Jones walk himself into the firing squad with his chest out and no bars to back it up? One line. That's all it took. One bar to silence the noise, freeze the comments, and leave a man pacing around studios, wondering where it all went wrong. And while Nas is out here aging like fine wine with platinum pens and timeless flows. Jimmy's legacy is out here doing the cha-cha slide into irrelevance. Now here's the real question: can Jim Jones ever bounce back from this? Or should someone start printing "I survived the quiet room" t-shirts just for sympathy? And what does this mean for the rest of the game? Should every up-and-coming rapper start carrying a "Do Not Engage with Nas" manual just in case? Or was this a warning shot for the entire industry? Respect the legends or get left trending for the wrong reasons. Drop your take in the comments. Do you think Jim deserved it? Was Nas too cold or just too real? Let's light up that comment section like Jimmy's mentions post-meltdown. And hey, if you made it this far without cringing for Jim at least once, you're built different. So go ahead, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because this is just the beginning. We've got more beef, more bars, and way more breakdowns on the way. Because in this game, one lyric can start a war, and we're here to document every lyrical casualty.